Our story begins on Coruscant as Grandmaster Yoda and Darth Sidious are dueling as the two titans of the light and the dark side of the Force. The two of them are moving up through the pods of the Senate arena, blasting each other with the Force in between strikes of their blades. Sidious would blast lightning right at Yoda, symbolizing far more than just a duel between two enemies. This was the Lord of the Sith, scorching the master of all of the Jedi. 1,000 years of hiding, waiting for this moment, culminating into one huge attack. Sidious would mock Yoda, telling him the time of the Jedi has long been over. The Sith will rule the galaxy, now and forever. Yoda flew in at Sidious, and their blades collided again, but before long, the lightsabers would be discarded. Sidious was throwing pods at Yoda, and the old Jedi could only keep up for so long before being hit with a blast of lightning and falling down to the floor. And as Yoda rolled hard to the floor, he would realize the harsh truth. He just didn't have what it takes. Perhaps he never did. The Sith have changed and adapted over 1,000 years. While he and the Order were still trying to fight the Brotherhood of Darkness, Yoda knew he had no chance. He knew it would have to be a new era of Jedi that eventually brings down the Sith. His sole objective became survival, so that he could help train the next line of Jedi. But as Yoda climbed up through the maintenance tunnels, he was struck with a feeling from across the galaxy. The same feeling that Darth Sidious was hit with at the exact same time. Lord Vader was in trouble. Kenobi had the upper hand. And Yoda paused for just a moment, closing his eyes, letting the Force guide him. He must not give up yet. The Sith are vulnerable. Skywalker is in danger, and Palpatine will be going to him. Perhaps he can go to Mustafar as well, and he and Kenobi can end this. A spark of hope lit up in Yoda as he would go to Bail, telling him of what he must do. And so, as the shuttle of the Emperor would blast off into hyperspace, the Tantive 4 was only a minute or so behind it. While in hyperspace, Sidious felt something he rarely felt, even while spending decades meticulously building up his empire in everything but name. He felt real anxiety about Vader. Could Kenobi truly defeat him? After years of grooming him into the perfect apprentice, the perfect heir to the Sith, could Vader truly lose? Sidious vowed to do whatever it takes to keep him alive, even if, or maybe especially if, it puts Vader into a state of constant agony. Failure and death is simply not an option. And on the lava world of Mustafar, Obi-Wan Kenobi was grabbing the lightsaber of Anakin Skywalker, leaving him to die in the scorching lava coals, clawing his way up the mountain to no avail. Obi-Wan knew he could go and finish it. That would be the merciful option. But Kenobi was not feeling merciful, and he would not kill an unarmed man. After all, he could suddenly feel another Sith Lord approaching the world, and he knew Padme was in danger if she does not get safe immediately. So, Obi-Wan would get into the Naboo ship, taking off, putting his head into his hands as he escaped the planet without the Sith Lord's shuttle noticing him. While Obi-Wan was in space, waiting for new coordinates of where to bring Padme, Sidious's shuttle zoomed into the lava world. But for Obi-Wan, new coordinates would never arrive. Instead, Bail Organa's ship would come to him, blasting off out of hyperspace, immediately making contact. Obi-Wan would lock on to the Tantive 4, and he would bring Padme aboard Bail's ship, telling him to get her somewhere safe. He then looked to Yoda, knowing what would come next. Obi-Wan told Yoda that Anakin is defeated. He cut him, limb from limb, to die in the lava. Every word made Obi-Wan burn inside, and he had to physically stop his hands from shaking as he remembered the moment he finished it. And Yoda shattered his entire world, saying he should not be so sure. Sidious clearly thinks Skywalker is alive. It is now their duty to go down and finish this. Obi-Wan nodded, and he held both his lightsaber and Anakin's lightsaber in his hands, saying they will need a plan. And down on the lava banks, Sidious was moving quickly to Vader's side, finding him charred, broken, and nearly dead. They would need to act quickly. He would send the group of clones to retrieve the medical capsule, and he knelt near Lord Vader, trying to command him to live through this. And as Sidious was long awaiting the clones, a new voice would call to him, a voice Sidious was sure he would never hear from again. Yoda was here, telling Sidious his apprentice is not as powerful as he thought. Sidious slowly turned around, with no amusement left in him. This has gone far beyond anything necessary. He didn't have any words for Yoda. He would just blast lightning outward with everything he had. trying to immediately eviscerate this tiny creature. Yoda danced around the lightning, flipping over it, landing on the hot coals, then using the Force to spray the coals and the lava towards Sidious. Sidious caught it, trying to protect Anakin from any more danger, and he pushed forward, trying to push Yoda into the lava. And meanwhile, up by the shuttle, the clone troopers were boarding the shuttle and hurrying the medical capsule down the ramp. But within a quick second, all of the troopers here would see a flash of blue as their heads would collectively fall to the metal landing pad. And then, the flash of blue would cut through the medical capsule, destroying it, and Obi-Wan would quickly sneak around the back of the facility. He would get to the edge, looking around to see Yoda drawing Darth Sidious away from Anakin. This was their plan. Obi-Wan had to sneak around the duel and do what he could not do before. He had to finish this. He had to kill Anakin Skywalker. And so, as Yoda and Sidious continued their duel in the Force, throwing lightning and lava back and forth, they would finally get into a lock during their fight. Sidious was blasting lightning, and Yoda was blasting it back. They were locked together in this moment. The current between them was building, and the only way to break it was by being stronger than your opponent. And then they would both turn to see Obi-Wan Kenobi emerging behind Anakin, as Sidious realized that Yoda was merely a distraction, allowing Kenobi to finish off the Sith apprentice. Sidious would try to overpower Yoda, but it was no use. Yoda was using everything he had left, and Yoda turned to Obi-Wan, telling him to finish it, destroy the Sith. Obi-Wan ignited his blade, holding it over Anakin. By now, Anakin had turned onto his back, and right as Obi-Wan was about to swing down, Anakin opened his eyes. He looked up at Obi-Wan, and the angry yellow eyes that burned in him when he was cut down had disappeared. They were replaced by the sad, distant, hopeful blue eyes that Obi-Wan knew and loved. The eyes of the boy that he trained. The eyes of his brother. But oddly enough, seeing that Anakin was still in there, buried deep under the dark veil of Vader, it gave Obi-Wan the strength he needed to be merciful. And so, Obi-Wan would plunge his blade into Vader's heart, ending the life of Anakin Skywalker. And as Sidious and Yoda continued to build their current of lightning spraying between them, Obi-Wan didn't hesitate. He grabbed Anakin's saber from his belt, throwing it through the air at Sidious as he ignited it. It spun through the air, forcing Sidious to break off from the lightning with Yoda, dodging the spinning saber, but of course was immediately hit by the blast of lightning. Sidious was thrown hard to the lava coals, crashing to the ground as the flames engulfed him, the same way they engulfed his apprentice. Sidious screamed out in pain and rage, but Yoda would not give him any chance to climb back up the hill. He would throw the Dark Lord deep into the lava, and he would disappear into it, dying here with his apprentice after pushing the galaxy into an empire. Obi-Wan would turn to Yoda, hoping to get off this wretched world with an ally by his side, but Yoda would grab at his head, dropping to his knees. He told Obi-Wan that his time has come. Yoda used every ounce of his power and his strength to help destroy Sidious. He knew, so long as Obi-Wan survives, that the Jedi Order will survive, so he gave it all. And Obi-Wan would catch Yoda in his arms as Yoda collapsed. Obi-Wan shook his head, telling Yoda he can't die. Not like this. He's already lost everyone. He can't do this alone. And Yoda smiled, telling Obi-Wan that alone he never will be. And Yoda would let go. His body would fade away, leaving Obi-Wan holding the burned robes, surrounded by nothing but death. But, as always, Obi-Wan would climb back to his feet and walk away, understanding his duty as a Jedi. He remembered what Yoda told him: as long as one Jedi lives, then the Order will live, and that responsibility will fall to Kenobi. He would leave Mustafar, and on Polis Massa, Obi-Wan would find the newly orphaned Luke and Leia Skywalker. Padme died in childbirth, and Obi-Wan would work with Bail Organa to find a solution. In the end, it was decided that the twins do not need to be separated any longer, not with the Sith dead. They will both go with Bail to Alderaan, living as twin siblings, and Obi-Wan will move to the mountains of Alderaan, where he will live until the time is right for the Jedi to begin again. And within the first weeks of the fall of Palpatine, the galaxy was falling into a sudden quiet. The fighting of the Clone Wars had stopped. The structure of the Empire was still standing. And from the Alderaan Mountains, Obi-Wan would watch as a Senate committee, led by Bail Organa and Mon Mothma, would step forward. The first months were spent peeling apart the Empire from within. They kept the systems that held the galaxy together, and as days passed by, more and more people would begin to disavow their loyalty to Palpatine in order to save their jobs. Reconstruction would spread across every planet hit by the war. Former separatist worlds were invited to participate fully in the Empire, which was slowly becoming a republic again. Bale spent most of his time traveling, mediating between systems that still distrusted each other, helping them see that the war was over, but unity was possible. The galaxy slowly adjusted, as children across the galaxy would grow up without clone troopers or Jedi, and for the first time in so long, the galaxy wasn't being aided by beings who wielded the Force. To many, the idea of Jedi or Sith became unreal, like a myth of a different era. Bale and Mon passed on their leadership to those who studied under them, as the galaxy continued its reform. And a decade later, after the fall of the Sith, the galaxy was not perfect, but it was stable, and it was in the beginning era of prosperity. With no Jedi, no Sith, and no reliance on Force users at all, the Republic did move forward, and in the mountains of Alderaan, Obi-Wan was left behind for the most part. He'd watched how the galaxy grew, and began to settle alone, knowing he may someday train the twins, but understanding there was no rush for it. Obi-Wan would find himself venturing into the Alderaan city more often. He was like an uncle for young Luke and Leia. Watching the twins grow up together in the same home was extremely heartwarming for him. Still, every time he looked at Luke and Leia, Obi-Wan saw Anakin and Padme in them, and it reminded him of the worst days of his life. Sometimes, when Obi-Wan remembered Mustafar and the scene of the Jedi Temple, he would feel his hands shaking again, as if they were remembering the moment he cut down his brother above the lake of fire, and later plunged his blade into his heart. And, although Obi-Wan may deny it, he was in a sort of retirement. He still meditated with the Force. He still trained himself with the lightsaber quite often. He was sometimes visited by the ghosts of Qui-Gon and Yoda, telling him to restart the Order. But Obi-Wan had no intention of returning to the galaxy right now. He was embracing the peace. And after this decade, Obi-Wan had many contacts in the galaxy. He knew Quinlan Vos was alive, helping former Jedi find a new life. There were groups of Force users separated from the Republic, just living with the Force. And over time, Obi-Wan would begin to hear rumors of a red phantom moving through the galaxy, massacring Force users. After a decade, when Obi-Wan first heard these rumors, he reached out to Quinlan, only to find that Quinlan's group had been ambushed, and all of them were killed by this phantom. And only Obi-Wan knew who this could be. He knew it was a mess that only he could clean up, and the longer he hides on Alderaan, the more innocent people that will die. He would visit Bale and his family for a wonderful dinner, and when it was over, Kenobi told Bale that he has to go away for a while, clean up a loose end. Bale knew it would be Obi-Wan's first time doing something like this in a long time, so he would wish for the Force to be with him, and Obi-Wan would set off from Alderaan, grabbing Anakin's and his own lightsaber. In his time here in the mountains, Kenobi had trained himself in the form of using 2 lightsabers, realizing how valuable the ability to adjust mid-battle can be, and Obi-Wan, while in hyperspace, realized how normal his life had become. The routine meditation, the hum of his old blade, the gentle rhythm of being nobody had given him a peace that he never thought he'd have. But as he now traveled world to world, following bodies left behind by a murderer of Force sensitives, that peace was trembling in him. Every death scene of Jedi, young and old, survivors of Order 66, or new Jedi discovered after the war, it felt like a wound was reopening, and Obi-Wan knew who was at the center of it, as across the galaxy, Darth Maul was walking through thousands of shadowed ruins, without fear. His new purpose was simple. He believes that the galaxy has finally shown that it prospers best without Jedi or Sith poisoning it. So, Maul decided he would cleanse it completely. His criminal empire was crumbling, without the Empire to fuel it. So, Maul got to work on this personal goal. He traveled many worlds. He cut down Force users the moment he sensed them, leaving their bodies where they fell. There was no joy, no anger, just conviction and revenge against the Jedi and Sith. He decided, once his work is done, once every Force user is dead, he would leave this galaxy behind, build a new dark side lineage somewhere untouched. But Obi-Wan was on his trail, hunting him down. Obi-Wan's search would pull him through remote villages, abandoned temples, long-forgotten outposts. Every world reminded him of missions from before and during the war. He hated doing this alone. He wished Anakin and Ahsoka were here. But then he would remember Mustafar. He would hear Anakin screaming. And still, he moved forward, following the killings, knowing he would find Maul soon enough. Maul would hear the whispers that someone was following him, a Jedi, and this was what he wanted. He knew rumors that Kenobi survived, and striking him down would be ultimate victory. But Maul didn't slow down or change course. The galaxy was large. His hunt was far from complete. He knew Kenobi or he will find Kenobi soon enough. Every fallen Force user signaled another step towards the future he imagined, the future the Jedi and Sith deserve. And the trail eventually would lead Obi-Wan to the frozen world of Megiddo. Small bits of snow were sweeping across shattered bridges and crystal spires, still damaged from the war. Megiddo was now a place mainly for business, and most people that lived here casually were well gone. The Force was thin here, and Obi-Wan would move through rusted wreckage. Blown-up Republic tanks were here, and Obi-Wan stopped suddenly in his tracks as he saw something stuck in the crack of an abandoned street. A lightsaber that once belonged to Ki-Adi-Mundi. The clones hadn't even bothered to pick it up. And then, from behind him, a voice called out to Obi-Wan, telling him that he will suffer the same fate as so many other Jedi. He will be forgotten in history, dying in the streets. Obi-Wan slowly turned around, finding Maul atop a fallen spider tank. Their years of history have brought them together, and Obi-Wan told Maul that his violence ends here. Maul simply asked Obi-Wan why. Does he not see the truth? The galaxy is thriving without Jedi or Sith. They have all been left behind, and Maul has decided it is his duty to ensure that neither cult can ever rise again. Obi-Wan disagreed completely. He saw the Jedi as the guardrails to ensure that the Sith do not rise again. Any threats of their return must be defeated or redeemed, and that included Maul. Both warriors ignited their blades, and Maul flipped from the tank, slamming his saber down on Kenobi. Obi-Wan would break free, and they circled each other, moving past the bodies of old clones and droids, still frozen in the cold Megiddo weather. Maul lunged, then jumped onto the hull of a damaged Republic tank, coming down with a vertical strike meant to split Obi-Wan in half. Obi-Wan caught the blade, and he pushed forward with a quick strike. Maul stepped back, sweeping the double-bladed saber horizontally. Obi-Wan ducked and stabbed forward, but Maul twisted, kicking him right in the ribs, knocking him through a half-collapsed arch. Obi-Wan found out he was much more rusty than Maul, and he got to his feet, but Maul was already on him. The two moved across a narrow bridge that overlooked a deep drop into Megiddo's foggy trench. Each time Obi-Wan tried to steady himself, Maul pushed harder, striking with rapid swings of his saber. Obi-Wan stepped into a counterstrike, aiming for Maul's stomach, but Maul caught the blade, kicking it straight into Obi-Wan's face. Obi-Wan felt blood begin pouring from his nose, ears ringing, his vision went white, and Maul followed with a fast strike that ripped the saber from Obi-Wan's hand. The weapon flew over the edge of the bridge, disappearing into the cold mist. Maul pushed Obi-Wan with the Force, and Obi-Wan slid off the edge of the bridge, barely catching the edge of it with both hands. He slipped lower, and the wind was howling in his ears as Maul stood over him. It was Naboo all over again, as Maul looked down at Kenobi, teeth bared. Maul knew Mundi's saber was nearby. He could see it slightly moving. Obi-Wan was going to try the same move that he tried on Naboo. This time, Maul would be ready. So, Obi-Wan let go with one hand, then pushed upwards into the air. As he twisted, he reached out, calling Mundi's lightsaber into his hands. The hilt would snap into his palm as he landed, igniting to swing at Maul. But Maul was ready. He blocked the strike, moving to cut Obi-Wan's head off. But Obi-Wan reached into his robes with his free hand, igniting Anakin's lightsaber that he brought with him. Maul was played, again. He never suspected this, and Obi-Wan was able to plunge both sabers into Maul's chest, driving him down into the frozen ground. Maul gasped, reaching up in disbelief, and his eyes would go soft as he died. Obi-Wan would leave him here, but before departing, Obi-Wan would use the full force he had to tear the broken street apart, allowing the memory of the war and of Maul to disappear into the abyss below. When Obi-Wan returned to Alderaan, he saw that defeating Maul had pushed him toward a decision that he'd avoided for a decade. The Force was alive in the galaxy, scattered, but breathing. Someone had to protect it, guide it, make sure it never twisted into the same nightmare the Sith had created before. So, Obi-Wan shifted his mountain home on Alderaan into the new home of the Jedi. His first students were Luke and Leia Skywalker, and their growth would shape the early spirit of this new order far more than Obi-Wan had expected. They each represented a different way of being strong, and that became a core principle for everyone who followed. Word of Maul's massacre had spread across the galaxy, and with it, whispers that Kenobi defeated him would spread. One by one, survivors found their way to Alderaan. Some were former Padawans who'd hidden after the war. Some were children born after the Empire's fall, who discovered their connection to the Force only recently. Others were hermits, who lived like Obi-Wan did, waiting for a reason to come back. The sanctuary would grow slowly, as a network of teachers, students, and guardians, building to something they believed in. Over the years, the influence of the new Jedi would act as one piece of a larger, more accountable society. This would earn them the trust that the old Jedi Order had lost long before the Clone Wars, and by the time a full generation had passed, the galaxy had changed for the better. And in this quiet mountain of Alderaan, a much older Obi-Wan would watch the grown-up Jedi Masters, Luke, Leia, and their fellow Jedi, grow into leaders who stood ready to keep peace against the ever-present darkness. And folks, that is our story for today. Yoda just, doesn't go into quick retirement. Obviously, in Revenge of the Sith, Yoda is burdened by the fact that there is already a pre-written trilogy telling him that he has to go into exile. So, that's what he does. But, what if he didn't? I enjoyed exploring it. Obviously, this story doesn't focus fully around Yoda, but rather around Kenobi and just having, knowing that Anakin's dead, knowing that the Sith are dead. So, appreciate you. I'll just totally lost my train of thought. Anyways, thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.